All right, on today's lesson, we're going to introduce something called a radian. So today, we're going to deal with degrees and radians. Degrees and radians, they're just measures of angles. That's all they are. We all know what a degree is. You can picture 30 degrees in your head. You can picture 45 degrees in your head. You can picture 90 degrees. But what is a radian? Well, it'll help if we look at a circle. If we have this really well drawn circle, and I know that the distance from the center out to the circle is known as the radius. Okay, so that's the radius of the circle, from the distance from the center to the circle. Now, if you take this distance, but put it on the outside here, okay, this is, say, 1 radius right here. That's the same as this distance here. All right, and you kept going around the circle, you would notice something, that it almost takes 3 of those to get around halfway. If you keep going, keep measuring the same distance. So there's 4, 5, 6 of them would almost go all the way around. This distance right here, this radius distance on the outside is known as 1 radian. 1 radian is the distance, or the measure of the radius on the outside of the circle. Now, on this, in trig, we talk a lot about something called the unit circle, and the unit circle is a circle with a radius of 1. Now, if you go back to your geometry days, you know that the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. Right, but if the radius of a unit circle is 1, then that's the same thing as 2 pi. And if you look at this on the circle, 1, 2, almost a little more than 3 of the radius or radii. Well, if you remember in geometry, pi is equal to 3.14. Well, that's what this is, 3.14 to get right there. This is pi radians, because all the way around is 2 pi. If the radius is 1, the circumference is 2 pi. So all the way around a circle, 360 degrees, is equal to 2 pi radians. Well, if you divide both of those by 2, 180 degrees is the exact same thing as pi radians. If you divide both of those by 2, 90 degrees is equal to pi over 2 radians. If you keep doing that and keep dividing by 2, we get into some special angles, our 90 and our 45. Divide both sides by 2. 45 degrees is the same thing as pi over 4 radians. And I'll show you an easy way to convert from degrees to radians and radians to degrees. But basically a radian is just the length of the radius, but on the outside of the circle. So how do you convert from degrees to radians? Well, if you look at something over here, right here, 180 degrees is equal to pi radians, because all the way around a circle, 360 degrees is 2 pi, so halfway, 180 degrees is pi. These two are the exact same thing. 180 degrees is the same thing as pi radians. And I'm going to use that fact to convert from degrees to radians and radians to degrees. So let's start with an example, and I'll write down some steps we can take. Let's say we had 30 degrees, and I wanted to know how many radians is that? Well, if you think of the entire circle, 30 is 1/12 of that. So one way to look at it is 1/12 of 360 degrees is 30 degrees. 1/12 of this would be 2 pi over 12 or pi over 6. I don't want to do that every time. What I want to do is multiply by something to change from degrees to radians. And the way we do that is we just multiply by pi over 180. Now, why can we do that? Well, because these two are exactly the same. 180 degrees is the same thing as pi. Pi over 180 is just multiplying by 1. So if I take this right here and multiply by pi over 180, that will change my degrees to radians. Got my calculator here. Now, really easy, I can cross off these zeros. I'm just dividing the top and the bottom by 10. So this is really 3 pi over 18, but that reduces to pi over 6, like I said before. 30 degrees is 1/12 of 360. 1/12 of 2 pi is pi over 12. But very simple. All you have to do when you want to change from degrees to radians is multiply by pi over 180. Now I should have put here reduce. Always reduce. So let's try another one. Number 2, 100 degrees. And here's what I think of when I'm changing from degrees to radians. I want the degrees to go away, so I put the degrees on the bottom. That way, top and bottom don't cross each other out. I know that 180 degrees is the same thing as pi. Immediately, I cross out a 0 if they have something in common. 10 and 18 have a common 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So 5 pi over 9 is the exact same thing as 30 degrees. All right, I want you to try this one. Let's say 225 degrees. You can pause the video and then try it. When you're done, start it up again and let's see if you did it right. So I multiply. Again, I want the degrees to cancel out, so I'm going to put a degree on the bottom. And 180 degrees is the same thing as pi. Now I can't cross out zeros, but I do know that they're both divisible by 5. So if you take your calculator, 225, oops. $225 divided by 5. I don't know if that's the biggest one, but it is 45. And then divide 180 by 5. That equals 36. And by this, you should know that 45 and 36 are both divisible by 9. So that would be 5 pi over 4. Right? But angles do come in negatives. Okay, remember, a positive angle is in the counterclockwise direction. A negative angle is in the clockwise direction. So that doesn't change how we solve these. Suppose I had negative 90 degrees. I still do the same thing. I multiply by pi over 180. Here I can cross out the zeros, and 9 and 18 are both divisible by 9, so that'd be negative pi over 2. All right, so that's converting from degrees to radians. Well, how do we change from radians to degrees? That should be easy enough. Instead of multiplying by pi over 180, we multiply by 180 over pi. Because 180 and pi are the exact same thing, I'm just multiplying by 1. So, number 5. 3 pi over 2. And again, what I look at is I want the radian to go away, and I want the degree to show up here. I wanted the degree to go away. That's why I had the degree on the bottom. Here, I'm going to have the radian on the bottom. Now, again, pi is the same thing as 180 degrees. The pi's are going to cross out. 2 goes into 180 90 times, and 90 times 3, 270 degrees. Number 5, number 6, 7 pi over 4. How many degrees is 7 pi over 4? Now, most of you can picture 30-degree angle in your head, 100-degree angle in your head, 225 degrees, or negative 90, but it's difficult now because you've never dealt with radians. Where is that 7 pi over 4? I don't know where that is on the circle. But I can find it because I can always multiply by 180 over pi or pi over 180. Well, I want the pi's to go away, so I put the pi on the bottom. The pi's go away. How many times does 4 divide into 180? I don't know. Let's look. 45 times. Okay, then 7 times 45, 315. So 7 pi over 4 is the exact same thing as 315 degrees. You might be able to picture 315. It's almost all the way around a circle, but 7 pi over 4 for now, that's a little hard to understand. Where could that be? All right, same thing with negatives. Let's say you had negative 11 pi over 6. I want you to try this one so you can pause it. And when you're done, check and see if you're right. I'm going to just multiply by 180 over pi. I know 6 goes into 180 or 18 3 times, so this must go in 30 times. And let's see, what is 11 times 30? 330, but it is negative, so that would be negative 330 degrees. All right, now you have everything you need to know to solve the homework. Make sure you show your work and just have fun. Bye.